Welcome back to the Wise Practice Podcast. Looking forward to interviewing my friend here, Shirlonda Shepard. She's a licensed professional counselor and the owner of True North and Associates, a mental health agency based out of Savannah, Georgia. She has extensive experience supporting individuals, couples, families through life transitions, trauma, and relationship challenges, drawing from her background working with active duty soldiers and her expertise in approaches such as CBT, ACT, and trauma informed care. She's passionate about helping others build resilience and live with greater clarity. Beyond her clinical work, she's also active in community outreach, professional development, and mental health advocacy. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's so fun to have another therapist in the area that I know and can have on the show and a part of the community. So it's really special to me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, Sherlonda, before we kind of get going, if you can share a little bit more about yourself, maybe how long have you had your practice, and then maybe a little bit about your family, just so people kind of understand your background and who you are before we get going.
Okay, no problem. So I've actually been in practice not quite a year yet. It would be a year at the close to the end of September. And as far as my family is concerned, I have a blended family actually. So meaning I was married, then I got divorced, and then I got remarried. But I have a child that's 22. My
Mm-hmm.
husband has an adult child as well. So yeah, it's just our little small family here in Savannah.
Love it. Love it. Great. All right. So, what is your question for consulting today?
So my question is, what challenges do faith-based therapists face when balancing clinical excellence with their Christian values?
It's a good question. Well, can we do that?
I think we can.
I think we can
Hmm.
too. The first thing that comes to mind, this really was impactful to me. I was at the American Counseling Association conference back in March in Orlando, and my talk was actually on how to use faith as a resource in therapy. So it was
Mm-hmm.
the idea of the components of our faith, community and forgiveness, prayer, meditation. These are clinically proven methods that help clients. And I said, hey, even if you're not a faith based person, these are tools that
Hmm.
you need that are important for your clients that you need to be utilizing. But I spoke also about myself as a Christian and that was
Hmm.
my background and that it was important to me that I'm not only using my faith, but I'm also using researched, understandable clinical skills. And a girl came up to me afterwards, who's now in the Wise Practice community, but she came up to me afterwards and she said, I am new in my faith and I didn't think that Christians could use evidence based treatment. And this means
Hmm.
so much to me because I thought I was going to have to let go of evidence based treatment to be a Christian therapist. Does
Oh,
that,
wow.
yeah, does that surprise you?
Yeah, it actually does because even, yeah, science evidence-based therapists or practices also incorporate gratitude and all those things. And so part of that I think is thankfulness, is being grateful as well. So yeah, that is, and even a little bit deeper than that, even if you're looking at CBT, right? And how it's about transforming your mind. And one of the biblical scriptures is about renewing of the mind. So it actually kind of goes together.
That's right. That's right. I actually did a group years ago. It was a CBT group it was called Renew Your Mind, Renew Your Life.
Oh wow.
And it was
Okay.
based on that passage and using
Yeah.
CBT. So I appreciate that you brought that up. Have you found it challenging in your own clinical work with clients to use faith or how do you incorporate faith? What are some of your challenges?
I guess my challenges would be more so about lifestyle choices, um, and making sure that I'm not, although yes, I am a Christian, but I also believe that people can do and who do what they want to do if that's what they choose to do, right? And so that's kind of one of the challenges. And so I kind of get conflicted sometimes with that, right? Um, I think that's one of my main challenges. And then also not necessarily in clinical work, but even talking to other therapists, you have some therapists that are, you know, they are really kind of rigid when it comes to some of their practices, when it comes to their faith, and that's their choice, right? But also I do think as a therapist too, we do we have sometimes we have a ethical code that we stand by, right? Do no harm. And so if you already know that this is not going to be your cup of tea, why bother with the client, right? Why even take that client on?
Mm. Hmm. Yeah, okay. This is great. You're bringing up some issues that definitely need to be thought through and discussed. Um, I love, first of all, we're talking about the ethical ramifications, really important. And we also know ethically, it's not our place to tell somebody how to live their life or what to do, unless it's
Right.
danger, like,
Yes.
yeah, don't go kill yourself, but like other things, like that's their choice and how they want to
Hmm.
do things. And I do think that overall, the Christian community, in my opinion, gets stuck on certain lifestyle choices or ways to do things when
Hmm.
really the Bible is about so much more than that, right?
Right. Hmm.
And so it actually kind of makes me think of the idea, and this is a simplistic example of something, but if a client were to come in and say, I drink throughout the week. Maybe they have a couple of drinks a few times a week, not like every night all the time. Therapists could run the gamut on what they think about that. Some might
Right.
think, oh, I'm a Christian, you're putting something negative in your body and that's bad and you shouldn't drink, da da da. Other people would be like, that's actually helpful for her because she's such a tightwad. She might need to take a drink every once in a while to relax and like to let go, and it's okay to enjoy life. And so I'm just saying, like, we could take that and it could be so many
Hmm.
different things. So I think as a therapist, it's about us helping our clients find what they want and what works for them instead of us telling them what they need to be doing.
Right. I agree
Right?
with that. Hmm.
Yeah. And so then, you know, and I'm sure you do this, we evaluate at the very beginning and we find out if our clients are Christian. And then if they
Hmm.
are requesting, giving them the opportunity to talk about if they want that in their therapy, right? So
Right.
let's
Hmm.
say the client is open to that. Well, sadly, these days, Christianity means so many different things, right? We have
Yes.
we have a wide variety of what's okay, not okay, how I live my life, how I don't live my life, that kind of a thing. So even if a
Hmm.
client says to me, I want a Christian perspective in my counseling, that doesn't mean that I tell them what I think Christianity is and what I think the Bible is, because look, I really don't know. I think I kind of know.
Right.
I try to know, but I want to help them find God. It's not
Hmm.
me saying, here's God and do it like this. I say to them, hey, what do you think this passage means to you?
Hmm. Hmm.
And and then also understanding like, yes, I know some things about Christianity, but I did not go get a theology degree. And
Right.
so I really do try to point clients back to their own theological backgrounds. And plus, someone who's Catholic, Presbyterian, Baptist, non-denominational, a lot of different ways of teaching. And I don't want to presume to know what I think is their way. And so I try to get them to educate me, but also say, hey, why
Hmm.
don't you go to your pastor with this question and kind of see where that goes? And
Hmm.
sometimes I've had relationships with pastors to help clients so that I can understand their perspective as
Hmm.
well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think that's good. With that, yeah, I've done the same thing. Or either I'll kind of like look up different. I'll give them different resources, right? Because I think recently marijuana was a topic that came up,
Okay.
and so one of my clients was like, "Hey, I'm smoking, but I'm trying to live that Christian life, you know." And I was like, "Well, I don't really know, you know. I think you need to talk to your pastor, but also we kind of looked up a little bit of research during the session too to kind of see what other perspectives was. So I think, yeah, I think definitely, and like you said, Christianity means so many different things in today, right? And there's so many different denominations as well. And so as far as like the teaching and those type things, and right, I'm not a biblical scholar. I didn't go to school for theology, so I don't know everything. And so I do think referring back, just going back to the church, or looking up them, also kind of doing their own research making
Yeah.
sure that the research is legit though, but them doing their own research because, you can start, you be like, yeah, cool, we can smoke weed in church. Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah. That's funny. Well, I'm glad that you kind of put it back on the client to say, hey, what do you think this means for you? I'm reminded of a client years ago that came in and was smoking every day. Now, this was not a faith-based client, but was also saying, I'm not doing well. Like, I'm failing in my classes. I'm getting to work late. And I finally was like, let's just talk for a few minutes about what marijuana, how it impacts your body, how it makes you less focused and tired or whatever, more relaxed. And it was like she had never thought about that. And I said,
Yeah.
well, no wonder you feel unmotivated when you get back from class because you smoked before you left.
Right.
And
Yeah.
she just had this realization. And I said, if you want your grades to get better and you want to have a good job, you're going to have to stop smoking. She went
Hmm.
home. I couldn't believe it. She went home, put it all down the toilet, and changed her life.
Oh, wow.
I was like, whoa. But like me, we know this. They have got to find it for themselves. We're the same way. If somebody tells me to do something, until I know for myself that I need it, I have no motivation to get it done.
Right.
So I
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely correct. Hmm.
Yeah, so we are more like Christian guides on the journey
Right.
to them finding themselves.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a professor in graduate school, Dr. David Benner. I don't know if you're
Hmm.
familiar with him. He has a lot of books. One of them's called The Gift of Being Yourself, which some therapists I know have read. And I got to go on a retreat with him. He's an incredible person and spiritual teacher, but also therapist. And he just taught me a lot about providing space for people. And he said things like, yeah, clients would come in the room and be like, don't you be praying for me. I don't want you praying for me. But, he prayed for his
Y-
clients, not in the room with them and all those kinds of things. And so I just kind of go back to the simple parts of being a Christian therapist. I think we make it complicated. We're pulling out the Bible. We have to tell people how to do things. I just think it really goes back to listening to the Holy Spirit,
hmm.
inviting the Holy Spirit's presence into our sessions. And then
Hmm.
really going back to the foundation of Christianity. It's about love. It's about
Right.
acceptance. It's about
Right.
caring for our clients. And then trusting that through that process, they will find God
Right.
and what
Yeah.
that looks like.
Right. And sometimes now you're right about that. And what I normally do is I'll ask the client if they say, if they identify as a Christian, I say, okay, well, how do you want to incorporate that in your therapy and how? Because again, how I may look at it as incorporating may be different than what they really want. And they may not even want that. So that's the
Mm-hmm.
other part too. Sometimes they're like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. Sometimes like, yeah, you know, I do. So I
Mm-hmm.
do ask those questions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, any other thoughts coming up for you as you think about incorporating faith into treatment?
No, not right now. I can't think of anything at this moment. How do you, I guess we've kind of went back and forth. Like, no, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't have any other questions.
Yeah, great. Well, I think another important thing to point out here, and this goes a little bit more on the business side, is if you do choose to be a Christian therapist, if someone feels like this is a part they want to incorporate into all their work, it's very
Mm-hmm.
important that we market that way. And
Mm-hmm.
I've had a lot of stories today. So another story of a practice owner that I know was not a faith-based person or Christian, I should say. And she went to a therapy appointment, and the therapist was a very devout Christian counselor and had Jesus all over the place, like
Oh,
Bibles, and even had a picture of Jesus facing the client while they were in session, and was asking her some very strong, it was evident within 15 minutes, with strong questions around Christianity. The girl literally got up and left the intake session midway through and was like, this isn't going to work for me. But I think this is so important. What she said was, it's fine that this counselor wants to do that, but it needs to be communicated to her clients that that's the type of treatment that she does, because she left with a terrible taste in her mouth.
right. Yeah, I can kind of make I can understand that. Yeah, because it's like you're not I think there, and then is there a difference between a faith-based counselor and a Christian counselor?
Hmm.
Because, and I'm asking that because I was at a conference a couple of months ago, and the lady was like, "Yeah, I'm a Christian counselor." I was like, "Oh," and so she was saying whatever she was saying, but it didn't sit well with me, and I was just like, I'm not quite following you." And she told me that, well, as a Christian counselor, yeah, I don't have to be licensed. I'm just certified. I was like, oh, okay. I yeah, I don't know anything about that. So that's a whole nother realm that I don't know if this podcast is for that or not. So I think, but I'm saying that because clients have to be careful also when it comes to looking for therapists that are Christian counselors or either faith-based, because although yes, I'm a Christian, I'm going to respect whatever faith you have, right? And no, I may not necessarily, I don't practice your faith, right? But here's the other part about this. I think a lot of the religions, right, do have some interconnection, right?
Hmm.
As far as like basic principles, respect people,
Yes.
right? Basic principles. So even if you're using it, even if you're going from that standpoint, even like let's say I'm somebody that's a Muslim come in my office, right? And they was like, yeah, I do want to incorporate faith. But obviously, I'm gonna be honest, I ain't never read the Quran. I don't even know what the Quran look like. I'm just gonna, and I'll tell the client that, right? But I will also kind of use what I do know from the Bible, right? And say, okay, well, how does forgiveness, what does Quran say about forgiveness, or does it talk about forgiveness, kind of, so then that way they are able to kind of um have their faith in the session, but not necessarily me kind of giving it to them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I love that. Yeah, I've actually had some clients with all different types of faith backgrounds, and helping them figure out what does that look like for them. I've also
Yeah.
helped clients research different faiths to try to figure out where they stand because they weren't
Hmm.
sure. When I think of faith-based, to me, that means you respect and invite any kind of faith into the room.
Right. Okay.
And to say you're a Christian counselor means you've got some kind of understanding of Christianity and have some kind of training as a counselor. Not everyone thinks the same thing. But, at least for us here in the state of Georgia, the word professional counselor is, protected, and you have to have the license to be able to call yourself that.
Hmm.
So I greatly appreciate that. There actually is an organization, and I'm not going to get it said perfectly, but it's like the Christian Counselors Board of Association or something for the state of Georgia. I've had one of the representatives on the podcast. So there is a certification that people can get in some states. Now, that organization is not specifically, you know, through the board for the state of Georgia. It's a separate
Right.
organization. You get a separate certification from it, but it's not licensed through the state of Georgia. So there are organizations out there that hang their shingle again, and they
Hmm.
say, we offer this to you. Here's a certificate. I mean, look, you and I can do a training and give somebody a certificate.
Right.
So I do think some people go and do that. I also was recently researching about pastoral counseling. Every state has a different qualification for that, but you can get a certification in that. And so you're not technically a counselor, but you're pastoral. So that is out there too
Hmm.
to be thinking about. But yeah, I think you do have to really consider what does Christianity mean? What does that look like? And everyone's going to have a different idea of that. And I would encourage clients, or if you're hiring or whatever, like to really, ask those questions of people like, what does your faith mean to you? What does that look like when you practice it? Because you want your practice to be aligned and you want clients to get the treatment that they're looking for.
Hmm. Now you mentioned hiring. So if we're still talking about it from a business aspect, right? So I know you have two practices here in Savannah. So when you hire, I mean, is that a question that you ask your therapist? Okay.
Yeah, so in our screening, we do like a 15-20 minute screening before we do an interview. And that's really to just weed people out, that aren't
Hmm.
good fits before I'm spending my time. So that's completed by somebody else on Zoom.
Hmm.
We look for a lot of different things, like did they show up on time? Did they dress okay?
Right.
We do some other qualifiers like, hey, we have staff meeting this day, this time, and here's what the potential schedule would be. Like, because these are deal breakers. If they're like, I won't work in one evening, then we don't even need to interview because you got to work evenings to see clients. So anyway,
Hmm.
one of the questions we have on there is that based on our history and where we're located, being in Savannah, Georgia, we do get people that call. We're specifically requesting a Christian perspective in their therapy. Would that be something that you're comfortable inviting to into the therapeutic work with your clients?
Hmm.
Most people say yes, because I don't
Hmm.
need them to be a Christian, because technically you really can't do that. You can't hire someone
Right.
and say you have to be this, unless you're in a different, like a nonprofit or a 1099, something like that. But it is okay to say, I need you to have this comfort or this modality. I mean, it's just the same idea that if I was an eating disorder clinic, hey, do you work with eating disorders? Like, if you don't want to work with eating disorders, this is not for you. So
Right.
that's
Yeah.
how we handle it. And most people will either be very upfront about their faith and say, oh, I'm a Christian. I love that. Da da da. Some will just say, that's not who I am, but I am comfortable with providing that. I used to grow up in church. I'm not opposed to it. I want to help clients find that,
Hmm.
whatever their faith is. And I'm okay with that too. But
Hmm.
there are also some times that people will get very upset, which is so interesting to me because it's not like I'm telling them what they have to be, but they will just flat out go, oh, I'm not a Christian and that's wrong that you would ever want to incorporate that into therapy, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's fine. This is not the place for you.
They didn't do their research on your company.
Yeah, that's
Right.
true. It's funny though, I also had some people say they don't want to work here because they think we're too Christian and they haven't even met us yet. Well, this is what we know about you, or this is what we saw. And I'm like, I really wish you'd given us a chance to talk to you about that, because they don't like the idea of overtly Christian practices. Such a
Hmm.
variety
Hmm.
out there.
Right. It is. It
Hmm.
is. You're absolutely
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, so we market ourselves some as a Christian practice. We have that on the website, Christian counseling page, and we certainly
Mhm.
don't say that we're not. But it's not something
Right.
we overtly market because I want to be able to meet the needs of all different types of clients, that are
Right.
coming in. And then that's a little similar to True North. True North has that element of a faith feel to me, but also not overt, and it's welcoming of all different things because we're all looking for where our true north is.
Right. And that's how we got the name.
I love it. I love it. So Sherlonda, what would you say are kind of your next steps or things that you're going to be thinking about from this time that we had together today?
Kind of, I did hear you say you have that on your on your page. Maybe incorporating that on my page, because I don't think that is an actual tab on my page on my website.
Yeah, that'd be
But
great.
maybe kind of go back and look at that to maybe incorporate that. And also when it comes to, like, I guess what is it, SEO practices and those type things, making sure that's kind of there too. And I've done some videos in the past, so maybe even incorporating some of those, maybe doing some videos just for um faith-based,
I think it's
to kind
great.
of invite that, to invite people into that space.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I know that you're a part of the Wise Practice membership community. So could you share a little bit about what that is and what it means to you?
Oh, you put me on the spot.
Ha
So I started, I got connected through the master class, and which was great, by the way. I do recommend that for people that are coming into starting their practice. And for the as far as the community, um I'm able to attend like webinars once a month, once or twice a month. Also, there is I won't call it a supervision group, but it's more of an accountability group as well. And I think that those things are really helpful. Because I know a couple of weeks ago, well, maybe about a month ago, I attended the accountability group and I was sharing about how I'm scared of charging people the full price when they don't make the appointment. And so they encouraged me and gave me some biblical background too. Like, wait a
Oh,
minute,
nice.
yeah. So yeah, they did that too during that time. So that was nice as well. But yeah, I do, and I think last week, was it last week? The lady, I don't remember her name, I apologize, came on and talked about oh God, what was it?
Oh, your
If
will.
you're yes, your business will, right?
Hmm.
So those are things I don't remember being taught that in school. I don't remember people even having conversations about that, right? Recently I've heard, hey, you got to have this in your informed consent to say, hey, something happened to me, call this person. But I went online and looked at the business. I'm like, why didn't I think of this? This is a great thing, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so those are the things that have been helpful for me in the community, being able to have these extra resources, things that you may not necessarily think of when you're starting a business, or even if you've been in business for years, some of these things you may not think of, right? Because
Yeah.
I can remember looking at therapist informed consent. I don't remember seeing that, even that little blurb about, hey, if something happens to me, this is what's gonna happen. And people have been in business for years, right? So just knowing that piece, I think, is helpful, and it's
Mhm.
a resource. You learn stuff every day.
That's
And
right.
also because of that, because of being in the WISE community, I learned about what is it? Profit first.
Yes.
So
Oh,
I'm
wonderful.
incorporating that as well. So yeah.
That's
So
great.
those wouldn't have been things that I wouldn't have had access to if I wasn't a part of the WISE community. So thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I'm so glad to have you, and I appreciate you sharing about that. And this has been a really enjoyable conversation today. I think it'll be helpful for people as we figure out how to integrate faith into our work. And so, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.